So we'll move on to our next item for discussion, COP19 Doc 12 on the World Wildlife Trade Report. This document has been submitted by South Africa. I'll ask South Africa to introduce it. South Africa, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Document COP19 Doc 12, submitted by South Africa, invites fellow parties to bridge an important and long-standing gap on trade-related information that is integrated at a global level. The daunting challenges that humanity faces today cannot be solved without knowledge and understanding, as we cannot manage or regulate what we do not measure. I trust you will agree that as CITES approaches its 50th anniversary since it was signed in 1973, it provides an important opportunity to have a clear overall picture of the global wildlife trade regulated under the Convention, covering a wide spectrum of issues. And no current reporting system does this, and I dare say it's long overdue. And the question is, how can the world manage and regulate wildlife trade wisely if parties do not have a full picture of wildlife trade? And how can parties explain more effectively to policymakers and the general public what role CITES plays in contributing to sustainable development goals? For this reason, Madam Chair, South Africa proposes the preparation of a periodic World Wildlife Trade Report during each intersessional period between the meetings of the Conference of Parties. And the objective of the proposed report is to help parties make better use of the existing primary data by documenting and analyzing a wide range of aspects of international trade in CITES-listed species. And these include trends, trade routes, and scale of the trade, including its value, as well as the conservation and socio-economic impacts, and the possible linkages between legal and illegal trade across a variety of supply chains. I hope parties had an opportunity to read and reflect on the groundbreaking pilot edition of the World Wildlife Trade Report, available as information document COP19 Inf 24. This pilot report is a great resource that helps to illustrate and visualize what is envisaged to be achieved. The pilot report is already a milestone that helps to fill a critical information gap. It shows great potential for improvement when active inputs from parties are available that would further enhance the report's relevance, information, and impact. Policymakers and the general public only have a partial understanding of the day-to-day trade-related work of CITES parties. Illegal trade in wildlife and their products is too often under the spotlight in the media, and this information asymmetry often leads to misconceptions about CITES and the wildlife trade. A global wildlife trade report reiterates and illustrates the spirit of CITES parties in seeking to facilitate sustainable, legal, and regulated trade in species and derived products. Independently of varied perspectives, wildlife trade has happened in the past. It's happening at present, and it will continue into the future. As demonstrated in the pilot report, during the 10 years between 2011 to 2020, approximately 3.5 million CITES shipments were reported in direct trade by exporters. This amounted to over 1.26 billion plants, 82 million animals, and an additional 279 million kilograms of products reported by weight. Many parties and members of the public have questions such as, what are the characteristics of wildlife trade taking place in the world currently? Why is there illegal trade in species that are under the watch of the Convention? What is the value of the wildlife trade, and what is the quantity of traded wildlife? Which countries are trading in what species or products or species? And what are the conservation and socio-economic outcomes of the wildlife trade to the very species that the Convention aims to protect and the people who share the land with them and beyond? Parties should have good insights into such seemingly broad issues so that specific regulatory measures and trade policies can be designed and enhanced. It's also critical to better understand the benefits that sustainable and legal trade brings in comparison to the negative impacts of unsustainable and illegal trade. In many parts of Africa, we know so well that sustainable and legal trade in wildlife can be a critical contributor to the conservation of wild species and their habitats, and to the livelihoods of rural communities that live with wildlife, as well as to our national economies. In closing, Madam Chair, I would like to highlight a few points about this proposal. Firstly, we see this as a party-led process. Therefore, we propose in the draft decision that a working group of the standing committee is created in order to consider issues such as the methodology of data collection and the template of data submission. Secondly, with a view to reducing the reporting burden of parties, the draft decision proposes that parties submit information through existing channels of annual and biennial reports on a voluntary basis. And thirdly, the report is meant to be comprehensive and balanced. As you will have seen in the pilot report, both the positive and negative conservation and socio-economic impacts are analyzed. A key element in responsible and transparent trade-offs that parties make when managing species in complex socio-ecological systems. Fourthly, we are conscious of possible legal constraints and concerns about sharing price data. As shown in the pilot report, price data will not be tied to specific transactions. Rather, it's used to give a general understanding of the value of the trade. And lastly, we are confident that the Standing Committee Working Group and the Secretariat can work out the proposed methodology of data collection in good time, which will allow the Secretariat to prepare the first World Wildlife Trade Report for consideration at COP20. Let's use this COP19 held in Panama to bridge the ideological difference in pursuit of adding value to the strategic vision of CITES and parties by enriching information and understanding the trade dynamics, further enhancing the future outcomes of the almost 50-year-old convention. I thank you, Madam Chair.